Hello, welcome back to Mega Manga Mondays. I am Jason Hahn, and today we're very excited to talk about new chapters in Chainsaw Man, One Piece, and JoJo Part 9. The very first time I've started reading a JoJo manga from the very beginning. And I got some buddies to talk about some of these with me and a couple other guests who are going to be joining us a little bit later. But we're going to be starting out talking about Chainsaw Man. We'll briefly introduce ourselves before getting in. But I, Jason Hahn, host of Mega Manga Mondays, am a screen rant writer and rabid video game player and content creator. Started Mega Manga Mondays to talk about new chapters of the series we love and are passionate about. And I got a couple buddies with me today. Ben, you want to introduce yourself, buddy?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I'm also a writer for Screen Rant for the anime and manga and comic sections. And I'm excited to talk about the chapters today. I mean, One Piece is my favorite manga series of all time, and its latest chapters have been really they've been going places. So
lots of places that are kind of setting the world on fire, and we may have just lost Steven.
Well, you heard I was talking about One Piece, and he was like, "Well, I gotta go.
I'm out."
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he just sent me a message saying we're gonna have to go on without him, but
rip.
Yeah, maybe we'll have him on next week. We'll see. But I think we'll go ahead and start out. Let me get this switched back to our primary setup there, and we're talking Chainsaw Man chapter 120. Chainsaw Man's coming out on Tuesdays right now, which is a little unfortunate with Mega Manga Mondays. So we're kind of talking about last week's chapter, but new chapters coming out tomorrow. So this will get you pumped up. And
is it? I thought it was. Oh wow.
Yeah. It's kind of going back and forth
yeah.
between doing every week or every 2 weeks.
I mean, I'm very happy that it's coming out tomorrow because that was quite the cliffhanger that we ended on here.
Oh,
maybe
absolutely.
Not as big a cliffhanger as the previous chapter, but
I was gonna say Chainsaw Man chapter 119 had the cliffhanger of War Devil taking over Asa and then going in to make out with Denji, which I don't know if we'll ever get the full clarification on that. If War Devil was just trying to stir the pot and get, some tension going, or if she couldn't control Asa's hormonal levels and just was like, I want to kiss him, I'm going to kiss him. But as soon as that happened, Nayuta came in with all the dogs and promptly responded to walking in on the kiss by putting a chain through her head. That was quite the cliffhanger. This latest chapter's cliffhanger, I didn't feel was that compared to that, but we'll get to it. But I was very happy that the chapter picked up right then and there, and it wasn't Asa getting impaled with a chain and dying, but it was some sort of control devil's magical ability. She transformed her brain into like a dog essentially. So she started barking, cuddling with the dogs, playing with the dogs and stuff like that, which was not what I was expecting. A lot of my theories were like, how's Asa War Devil going to explain to Denji, oh yeah, I can heal after being impaled through the head with a chain?
no. I mean, this is similar to like Makima's sort of chains that she had in part 1. Like, not exactly the same, but like I sort of interpreted it as like a control devil sort of control thing, not like you're dead now, like that doesn't track with what the control devil does really. Like they're not going to instantly kill someone, they're going to try and control them. So
yeah. And that totally makes sense. I just kind of forgot about the controls devil's chains and their abilities from the first part.
Well, they weren't exactly chains in the first part, I don't think. So it's understandable. But she had her like guts, sort of her like innard connectors, which were basically chains. So
that's right. Yeah, I'll have to. I kind of sped through part 1 because I just loved it so much, and I had gotten into it when it was kind of wrapping up, so I had a lot to get through. It would be fun to reread that. Hopefully, the anime picks back up. I heard the sales numbers weren't so great, but it was massively trending, and so many people watched it. You would think that they would adjust their methodology,
but who knows?
Yeah. But that's getting anime business is beside the point. Chapter 120 of Chainsaw Man really focused more on uh, uh, diving more into Denji and Nayuta's relationship, which was something a lot of us had been wondering about since part two even started. Getting a glimpse into that home life and seeing how Denji. I know they keep throwing around like roommate or big brother sort of thing, but I don't know the way I look at it. It's Denji being a dad
Yeah,
essentially,
basically. Yeah.
and
Which I'm here for.
yeah,
I want to see more Dadgy.
Dadgy. I haven't heard that yet. We'll see if that starts trending.
I doubt it, but
I doubt it. But yeah, Nayuta like had a lot more dialogue than I was anticipating, and she just seems, almost like kind of a normal girl with scary powers. She hasn't exactly shown a side of herself that she's just like, murdering a bunch of people or anything like that. We haven't seen her, have that sort of disconnect. Like Denji seems to be doing a pretty decent job of shaping her into not a murderous, rampaging control devil. So he's doing okay. But I really enjoyed like he asked her to change her back right away, and she's just like, "All right, under two conditions, I get ice cream every day," and Denji's like, "All right, as long as I get some too." Like,
mm,
as an adult, we'll see how long that shapes up. Because if I had ice cream every day, a my wallet would be mad at me, and two, my insides would be very mad at me.
I
So
just get a little bit of ice cream.
yeah, it's all
Doesn't have
about
to be.
proportions.
Yeah,
And then part two of her request was the big one that I think is going to kind of shape how things go from now on. Uh, Nayuta is saying to Denji that he can no longer see her or be romantic with her. No more canoodling. I don't have the chapter up right now. I should have the chapter up.
yeah.
Um, but somewhere along the lines of just no longer seeing her
No more
anymore.
getting friendly with her.
Get it there. You go. Thank you. Which the last thing you want to tell two people with a bunch of hormones going is don't do this thing. Uh,
Mm,
they're going to want to do that thing even more, at least from my own life experience. But
mm.
uh, but her like having the ability to change her memories completely wipes the whole situation from her brain. Denji still knows about it, obviously, but I just was really kind of bummed at that, honestly, because there was a lot like that happened there between Denji and Asa's relationship that I wanted to see how it happens from there on. Like
I mean, it
those,
could still happen
oh
in
yeah,
the future because the name of the chapter is called Triangle, which love triangle is what
yes,
springs to mind. Um, so I think there could be a potential love triangle starting up, especially given the end of the chapter, which is
yes,
why I think that the end of the chapter is such a cliffhanger. It's like,
yes.
ooh, we might be starting on a new romantic relationship now.
Exactly. Yeah. So in Asa's brain, she was stood up. None of that ever happened. But Denji has been pretty bad at like hiding secrets. And, anytime somebody presses him on something, he's very quick to be like, well, you know what? Actually, I'm Chainsaw Man or something along those lines. So now that we have like Denji's tension on the relationship against Asa is at a much higher spot than Asa's would be, but she, in her brain, she got stood up. She obviously had an issue with it because we got a whole page of just huge dialogue bubbles of her like, I don't have a problem. I don't like him. I don't like him at all. Actually, yeah. It just keeps on growing. And you're like, I think she does like him a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of a mirror of the beginning of part two, I thought Yoshida shows up and randomly asks, if he can keep her company because she looked like she was distressed. Um, we don't know yet if this is Yoshida still being sneaky and maybe he has an idea that maybe she is more than just a schoolgirl. Maybe he's on to her that she could be possessed by the war devil, or he's legitimately, trying to flirt with her. which sets up him being possibly a dangerous weapon that War Devil can take advantage of. Um,
Who
yeah, I'd love to
knows?
hear your
We'll
thoughts.
we'll have to see. I mean, I think that given the chapter title is Triangle, I think this might be the start of, Asa trying to go after Yoshida.
Yeah.
But Yoshida has been a very enigmatic character. We don't really know what he's thinking at any given time, and so who knows? He could just be manipulating her. He could be, as you said, suspecting that she's actually possessed by a devil. We'll just have to wait and see for tomorrow's chapter.
Yeah. So get excited for that, because we'll see how this relationship develops, because I can't remember. I mean, Yoshida was at the aquarium, but when she demonstrated her powers and also exploded the devil that they had to fight there, Yoshida may have seen that. But they had all been trapped in the aquarium for a couple days and were getting exhausted and delirious. So maybe that's something that Fujimoto will clarify more on the next coming chapters. But by introducing Yoshida as possibly a more of a love interest, I mean, he's definitely more dispendable than Denji is in the storyline.
Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see if she actually does manage to successfully turn him into a weapon.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking that would probably be the most, interesting thing to happen or to come out of that relationship. I totally see that happening. Or Yoshida is going to lead her into, having to confront a bunch of other devil hunters or something like that. Um, but
I mean, I doubt he'd do that just out of nowhere, because the devil hunters make use of people with contracts with devils. So, like, it's not like he wouldn't be like, "Oh, you clearly have a contract with the devil. We're going to kill you on sight."
right.
He'd be much more likely to try and convince her to join the devil hunters than to like just kill her outright.
Yeah. That would be kind of interesting if Denji like sees her after she's like become a devil hunter, and then he's like, wait a minute, there's some things you didn't tell me, and she's like, hey, you're the jerk that stood me up. I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to you.
Well, I don't think she's actually going to become a devil hunter, but
Right.
we'll have to see. I mean, she could. It could be the
Right.
direction that this part's going, but I kind of feel like this part is just trying to be different from part one,
Mhm.
and like it would be too much the same sort of thing if she joins up with the devil hunters, I think.
Oh, that's a great point. I Yeah, that seems like a smarter smarter way of going about it. Because right now, at this point of the Chainsaw Man manga, like this is we've kind of, even through part two, we've had a bunch of these like mini arcs, like with Asa and her friends. I'm terrible with names, but that got possessed by the Justice Devil, and she had to uh, take care of
Yuko.
her. Yuko, thank you. I forgot that one last time we talked too. I remember.
I've
I
already
remember.
forgotten the most
Yeah,
tragic character in the part so far.
absolutely. So we had an arc kind of focusing on that, and then we had this little arc focusing on like Asa and Denji dating. And now that that has kind of closed a little bit, we're kind of at the beginning of this next little mini arc, and I have no idea where it can go. Fujimoto has done a great job, I think, with part two so far, of just keeping it changed and keeping us on our toes, essentially. Like, I've consistently been like, I have no idea what could happen next. He's been throwing a lot of red herrings too. Like that class president overheard Denji telling Asa, "You can come over to my place, but you have to follow these rules or you might die." And he didn't end up like showing up. I was thinking he was going to be like peeking in the window and see something that he shouldn't have seen, or something like that. But yeah, he
I
just
mean,
keeps
it
on.
could still be revealed that he did, but
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't think that was necessarily going to happen, because it would just be too like, why would he do that? He doesn't really have motivation to just eavesdrop on people. Like, I mean, even if
I
he's
don't
like, "Huh, that's kind of weird," like it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's enough of a weirdo to like do that, but I don't know.
tell it.
It just seems kind of out of character.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know a whole lot about him yet, other than he's like a lying. I wouldn't go so far as to say a
Fanboy.
coward. Uh, he is a what? Sorry,
He's a fanboy.
a fanboy. Oh yeah, a Chainsaw Man fanboy. Um, so I mean, just saying like Fujimoto's kind of dropping those little things that could turn into something. Like overhearing that somebody could get murdered if they do this thing. I could see him like following them to Denji's place to make sure that murder doesn't happen, or so then just curiosity. I mean, I've read plenty of stories where things like that could happen, but
Yeah, no, I
um,
mean, it definitely could be a possibility, but I sort of interpreted that more as just a funny sort of moment.
yeah.
But we'll have to see. It could definitely be revealed later.
Absolutely. Well, I've been hearing. You've said we'll have to see a few times. I would love to
Oh yeah.
hear where you suspect. Where would you, if you were writing Chainsaw Man Part Two? Where would this go next?
Well, I mean, immediately next is going to be Yoshida and Asa hanging out together on what
Okay.
may be considered a date. But after that, who knows? There's a lot of different sort of elements in the air, like different directions the series can go. And as you said, we've sort of been on like just these sort of mini arcs of interesting things happening and them just dealing with it. And so I mean, one of those mini arcs is clearly going to come up again, but it's unclear exactly what that mini arc is going to entail. I feel like it probably will have to do with like the Justice Devil and like the fake Chainsaw Man that's killing people. Um, but that could just be something saved for later. And there could be more intervening parts. But we'll just have to find out. Fujimoto is such an unpredictable author that it could really go any way. Uh, so I'm just excited to strap in for the ride and just trust him with the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly like with all the excitement of the aquarium and then the phony Chainsaw Man revealing, oh no, this is just like a thing I added. It's not really a ripcord or anything like that. We still had a supposed Chainsaw Man like fake kill Yuko, and after all those things happened, I kind of forgot about that. We still have that lingering mystery.
Mhm.
And honestly, I mean, we still need that to be solved, of course. But with this possible love triangle coming up, I am very excited to see like if Asa and Yoshida start hanging out and Denji sees that. It's just going to make him even more like jealous. And
Yeah, well, that's
I'm
the point of a
anxious.
love triangle, right?
Yeah, I'm anxious to see like Denji in that situation because
Mm.
he's consistently always just overpined over women who are, uh, for the lack of a better term, like out of his league. But he,
Uh, I don't know if I'd characterize it that way.
right,
I mean, he's pined after women who've manipulated him, I'd say,
yes.
but I wouldn't necessarily say that his main problem with love is pining after women who are out of his league.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it wouldn't be his main problem, but I guess what I was just getting at is we haven't quite seen him, uh, get jealous over a girl who's dating another character that we know.
Yeah,
So I'm interested to see how Fujimoto balances this sort of dynamic and what comes of it because we're deciding to stick with Asa. We kind of dabbled time with Denji, especially in the last chapter because she was passed out and a dog.
mm.
So yeah, especially with Asa having her mind wiped of that experience, um, just seeing where she's going to go from here. Pretty exciting stuff. So we'll definitely be talking about the new chapter of Chainsaw Man next week because we'll
Yeah.
have a new one to talk about that comes out tomorrow. So, but yeah, man. Any other thoughts on Chainsaw Man before we move into something we could talk about infinitely? One
No,
Piece.
I think that's pretty much my thoughts on it. I'm just excited for next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, as we said, it could go about anywhere from here. We have a few lingering questions still that need to get answered, and of course, Asa is still on her mission, and still doesn't know that Denji is Chainsaw Man. um, or is taking care of the control
Control
devils.
devil,
So. Yeah. But we know more about Nayuta now. This chapter definitely established that relationship very quickly and effectively, I thought. And things seem just fine between in the household of Denji and Nayuta. So
yeah.
that was a nice it took a chapter and a half essentially to establish or to answer a lot of those questions we've had since part 2 started. So but yeah, I think we'll go ahead and end our conversation on Chainsaw Man. And I I've been very excited to start talking about One Piece
Oh yeah.
chapter 1075. We've got another buddy who definitely could talk some One Piece with us. He's was stuck on a train last I talked to him, so we'll see if he gets in a little bit later. But yeah, One Piece chapter 1075. Dude, Egghead Island is
Oh,
just
it's been great. It's been such a great arc. It's just reveal after reveal after reveal, just and now the action's starting to pick up and the mystery and Kuma's flashback and
yeah.
it's just so much good stuff.
Yeah, because unfortunately we were off last week, but 1074 we got a little bit of a Kuma flashback when he was a child. Bonnie saw him getting beaten up and crying about not wanting to return somewhere and wishing that he was dead. Some pretty dark, traumatic stuff.
Yeah, you
Um,
can always tell. You can already tell it's going to be a great flashback.
Yeah, and there's so many of One Piece's questions that are hanging on that Kuma storyline.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, he's one of their most, or a lot of people's most interested character in all the series because of all those plot lines. There's just a couple things I'm really curious about personally with Kuma, and that's like, oh, good, I think Francesco's ready. Perfect timing.
Perfect.
Let me get link sent to him. Uh, but yeah, chapter 1074, Bonnie kind of went into a glimpse of Kuma's past there. And I'm really curious how he goes from there to being like a king and what his relationship with the celestial dragons are, because they seem to have been part of his life ever since he was a child. Um, but there's still there's a huge theory that I think Bonnie is actually part clone of Big Mom. Um, and I almost wonder if Kuma had a daughter that passed and he wanted Vegapunk to make a clone of her to bring her back. Or possibly it might be what I also suspect the Weevil situation to be, where they might not actually be biologically related to the person claiming to be their mother, but they might, Stussy, the old Stussy, might be taking care of Weevil as a sense of like parental feelings.
Well,
I
I feel like the Stussy Weevil situation is more like she was in love with Whitebeard
yes.
and she was like, I'm gonna make a son with him, as in I'm gonna clone him as my own son. So I think that she's just sort of has a messed up sort of view on on their relationship, and it actually does believe yeah, I'm his biological mother and
Mhm.
stuff. But I mean, I think the Kuma situation will likely be very different. I could definitely see it being something where like Kuma never actually had a daughter, and he's just taking care of the clone of Big Mom, and she becomes a daughter to him. But hello, Francesca.
Hi guys.
We're just
Hey, man.
discussing Kuma and what the potential Kuma flashback could entail and
Hey,
reveal. Um,
nice to see you. First of
yeah,
all,
it's great seeing you again. It's been a
thanks,
while.
thanks
Yeah,
for
good
having
to
me.
Yeah, good to have you on, man. Francesco is another writer on Screen Rant. He writes a lot of great stuff about One Piece, Dragon Ball, kind of stuff. Definitely check out his works there. But we just finished talking about Chainsaw Man, and great timing. We just started talking some One Piece. So, uh,
Excellent.
yeah, kind of going over what we brushed up on 1074. Haven't quite dived into 1075s yet. But with the Kuma flashback, really curious to see how that shapes up into him eventually being the king. And we've got all these theories going around with clones on how Weevil could be a clone of Newgate. Bonnie, I think, could be a clone of Big Mom, who was raised by Kuma. But we'll have to see how that shapes up.
I don't actually agree with that.
With the Bonnie being a Big Mom clone thing?
Yeah, because we saw how Big Mom was as a kid, and that's not how Bonnie.
Well,
looks.
do you think Weevil looks like how Whitebeard looks, or presumably looked as a kid?
But we know that Weevil is a failed clone.
Oh, that's true.
It's got stitches, and they got all these issues, and still there is a resemblance, sort of, right? While on the other hand, Bonnie looks nothing like Big Mom, and it could also be a bit, I don't know, it's kind of repeating itself if that were the case. And I think what's most interesting in the flashback is that we kind of get the idea that Kuma was a slave of the Tenubitos, the Celestial Dragons, the guys, which is new information. We didn't know that, and it explains well,
especially at such a young age.
Yeah, it explains a lot of things, like when Oda drew the Seven Warlords as kids a few years ago, and everybody thought these were just random drawings, made to please the fans. And then fast forward, we actually get to see that these were basically sketches for the Seraphim. Also Kuma was drawn in a very specific style of a popular historical Japanese figure, which I don't remember the name. I also wrote an article on that, so I'm terrible. I will look it up. And so this is sort of a half folklore, half historical figure. And it's basically it was a poor kid who basically was a farmer or whatever, and he educated himself, and he grew like Ninomiya Sontoku. So he educated himself, and it's sort of an example that Japanese culture has of how you can rise up in life if you educate yourself. And in fact, these the statue of Ninomiya are often found in schools in Japan, and it's this kind of farmer boy with a book, which is the way that young Kuma was portrayed, and actually also was reading a book that made it very clear that was the reference, right? So now we know that as a kid he was a slave, and somehow he got all the way to being to become a king. Circumstances that we don't know yet, but then he went back being a slave. So that's why the punishment for Kuma was becoming a slave, which was, if you think about it, it was sort of odd, right? Because you have this guy who has already given up his everything, right? Because he has already become a soulless machine, right? So what's the point of the punishing him for defending the Straw Hats in Sabaody, right? What's the point in punishing him with being a slave?
Yeah, I kind of interpret it as like when he was a slave and we saw them like dealing with him and stuff, they were like, he's the invincible slave, you can do anything to him and he won't die. Right, so I kind of interpreted like they couldn't execute him anyways.
That's like, right? That's how we were sold the story, right? It was the classic. Okay, these vicious noble guys, they found a toy that they wanted, right? Yeah, but also didn't. If you think about it now, it didn't make much sense. They could have used it for further experiments or for anything else. But no, it went back being a slave, which, if you think about it, it's the worst possible punishment.
Yeah. So it's a double edge. It's a double sort of meaning there.
And Kuma, a sort of Kuma, a paw print could also be like the Fishman, when they changed the Tenryubito mark to something else.
Oh yeah, to the full sun.
It could be something like that, right?
Yeah, the Kuma flashback happened last chapter, and we're still so many things to unravel about it. I unfortunately we didn't get any more insight on that on the newest chapter, but I'm of course really curious of what Kuma's current objective is. I thought he was going to be trying to get back to Egghead Island to help Bonnie as quick as possible, but anytime we see him, he's still trying to climb up to get to Mary Jawab, and that's where he was getting captured, or that's where he was serving out his sentence, and he seems to be acting on his own now, and they're stopping him from or trying to stop him from getting up there. Just so much writing on that storyline that we need more of. So hopefully next chapter we get some more Kuma stuff, but 1075 we didn't get more of that, but even the cover story is just throwing more questions at everything. We got to see a younger Egghead, or he is an Egghead, a younger version of Vegapunk meeting all the world stars, and their silhouettes are kind of blackened out, I think, to kind of give us a mystery of like, have they not aged at all in these 20 years? So possibly one theory I've had is Law's immortality surgery has been done several times before and sacrificed that user to make people immortal. But it would suck to be old and then turned immortal. Like, oh man, I've got this old body I have to use forever now. What you got, man?
Or maybe, I was thinking of the artificial organs that we saw in this chapter, but I think these are like a more recent. These are like a more recent development. So I think it's easily the Ope fruit that did that.
Well, something that might be is like they brought Vegapunk to talk to them, maybe because they wanted him to prolong their lives. So maybe the artificial organs were something they initially made for them, and maybe that is why they're still around.
Well, and I love Chopper's one of my favorite characters just because he's just so innocent all the time. And that moment where he's like, oh my God, you're able to grow organs? That's so amazing for medical science. And Robin's just like, oh, I thought they were dismembered parts of Vegapunk. Like just the total opposites there of like, I instantly see the benefits of this medically to, oh no, it's a messed up body part sort of combination there. But I really enjoy the pairing offs that we have right now. Last chapter, we of course had Sanji instantly wanting to group up with Stussy, who Zoro had just watched betray CP0 and take down Kaku and Lucci single-handedly. So Zoro instantly is maybe I should go with you. Zoro kind of showing that logical process of like he wants to be there to help, even if it is Sanji, especially with Sanji's weakness towards women. I thought that was really interesting that Zoro kind of volunteered to jump in there.
Let's not forget that I think it was 2 chapters ago when Zoro and Brook were stuck outside defending the ship, and all the Seraphim and the CP0 attacked, and Sanji went, well, now that we were so close to the One Piece, he had to die. Well, sucks to be you. It was an awesome moment.
Yeah. Oh, there's been so many moments in Egghead. You're just like, it's just all coming together. It feels so lovely being connected and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that, like, Wano was this great sprawling epic that had the Straw Hats separated for a lot of it and had everything spread out over a lot of time. Whereas here, Egghead is just so concentrated. We're getting so many different Straw Hat interactions, and we're getting so many different cool things that it's just everything is hitting so much harder after Wano.
Absolutely.
And it's also just awesome on its own too. Like, I mean,
I almost feel like it's hitting harder because of Wano. Like we just
that too.
we just had that long stretch, especially even before Wano. We had Whole Cake where the Straw Hats were separated, and we with this, and even with Dressrosa, the whole thing was all these groups all over the island trying to converge to a point. So I mean, this feels like years and years of them being separate to finally them together and getting all of these rich character moments that I think some people might miss if you haven't been paying attention, especially with all the character dynamics that are going on. But getting to see Usopp and Frankie's group encounter Pythagoras, who seems to have been betrayed. We think that there is a Vegapunk that is betraying everybody, which it's either that or the World Noble has arrived already and has been able to deliver the
problem here is that if there is a traitor Vegapunk, must be the main one, because the main one overrides Stella overrides the satellites, and Pythagoras tried to tell the Seraphim to stop. She didn't stop, which means that the orders were given either by Stella or by Saturn, who has just arrived nearby.
Right.
Well, I think it could be like one of the betraying Vegapunks patch Saturn into the Seraphim, right? Because
that doesn't work, because I went back and they specifically say that the control chip doesn't work remotely, right? So you have to be there and give the order, which is like super weird, right?
Well, so that does mean that it has to be one of the Vegapunks on the thing. And it could still be Pythagoras if Pythagoras just tells them, don't obey my next order. And then they're just trying to gain
that's
trust.
Not One Piece. That's Hunter x Hunter. That's not One Piece.
I don't know. I'm just saying it could be a possibility.
I think it was a chapter or two ago, actually, like Stussy brought up that Lucci gave an order to the Seraphim. So her being another member of CP0 wasn't able to overwrite that because she's not a higher level than Lucci. She's at the same level. So that's what I thought was going on here too, is it could still be a Vegapunk because one of the Vegapunks was trying to tell the order, hey, you need to stop fighting. But because another Vegapunk already gave that order to attack, that it didn't get overwritten. Or World Noble is there already.
That's an interesting detail. And I totally missed it. It could be the explanation. And yes, this is very Togashi stuff. Like most like we're reading Hunter x Hunter, which sadly yesterday we got the news that's been officially removed from weekly.
Well, it's been archived, which could mean that it's shifting to Jump Plus, which I think is the most likely explanation.
You think that's it, or maybe
I think
that's
it
to the monthly Jump?
Oh, it could just be shifting to monthly as well.
Yeah, I hope so. But anyway, let's not derail the.
Yeah. We could discuss this for a while, but
the biggest question I think in this chapter is how are these fights going to go? Because all the build up is that the Seraphim are stronger than basically everyone else, maybe except for Luffy, kinda, sort of. So how is like Sanji or Frankie and all these guys going to, or Jinbe? Because in theory, like we saw a Seraphim go face to face with Blackbeard, and they said go out without scratch, which is, I mean,
well, I think it kind of relates to Zoro's fight with King. Like there was it's been a little bit, and it was still kind of fuzzy on it, but I think King had like two modes. Whenever the fire was going on his back, like he couldn't take any physical damage. So I think the Seraphim were the same thing, where they're vulnerable only at a certain point. So they can't be scratched because they were constantly in that mode, maybe. But we just don't know enough about them. But The fear level was definitely established in this chapter because Lilith is even like, we don't stand a chance against these things. We made these things to be unstoppable killing machines. And so, yeah, you bring up a great point. Like, I think Usopp and Frankie's team is probably the least equipped for the situation. But I think, Robin and Chopper haven't encountered or are not being confronted. But I know Sanji and Jinbei, they can be some powerhouses there, especially with Sanji.
They're together. Like, they're gonna fare, I guess. But they also have not encountered the Seraphim, but the Jinbei Seraphim is on the loose. Like, nobody knows where he is.
Oh, true. And he can swim through land, so he could be about anywhere.
I'm curious if we're going to see a Jinbei versus Jinbei fight.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Jinbei's so cool that he's going to win regardless of...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, and I'll just be happy to get more awesome Jinbei moments because he's the newest member of the crew, and so he's had the least amount of, epic moments of them, I'd say.
True. That was something that I might be one of the lone One Piece anime enjoyers of the Screen Rant comic side. But that was one fight that the anime really... Okay, good. I know Ben's had some harsh words for it. And I agree. I agree with some of it for sure.
Yeah, I don't like shows that waste my time.
I gotta say that it's not what you shouldn't watch it. It's on One Piece. It's like watching... I don't know if you guys used to watch Saint Seiya as kids.
Nope. I never watched like any of the old Toei shows.
It's it has that feeling like this whenever they make an attack, a big move or something, they start glowing and they shoot these energy beams or whatever. And they're doing the same in One Piece. And of course, the visual effect is cool. They're doing a lot of cool stuff with the animation, which it's good. But if you have been reading the manga, that's the opposite of what the One Piece fights are always, dirty and gritty, and there's blood, and of course there are crazy things, but at the end of the day, you can see that that's people punching each other, right?
Yeah,
right. Punch fighting.
And the anime looks like Dragon Ball or that sort of stuff when it's just too flashy. But it's a good product by itself.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. I'll go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I've seen clips that look cool, like from it on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, neat, that's a cool clip of a cool like animation showcase. But like the episodes themselves just drag out everything so long.
True.
Like that, it just feels like it's actively wasting my time trying to stretch out things to like just stay behind the manga. And so that's why I say
you gotta watch selected episodes. Like, don't watch it every week. Just watch it.
And that, yeah, I mean that's my biggest complaint. It's like I don't watch shows like that.
Right. And I mean we could talk about the differences and the nuances of the anime versus the manga for a while, but I'll just say real quick, going back to Jinbei, it's one of the things that I appreciate about the anime, because if you put yourself in the situation of the people producing the anime, they're having to put an episode out every week. They're having to adapt a thing without it getting too close to the manga. So they have to come up with reasons to stretch it out and to come up with a product.
Or they sometimes could shift to seasonal.
I think everybody would love that except Toei.
Yeah.
And unfortunately they're the decision makers on it. But some situations I think it really helps. With the Jinbei situation back when he fought is it Pei? The guy who lost Luffy's double fruit. Who's who? Thank you. Yeah, Pei is Ulti's brother. But yeah, who's who fight in the anime was a lot more stretched out and a lot more enjoyable. Animation wise, of course, too, but they just were able to dive deeper into that and give Jinbei some really cool moments, I thought. So hopefully we get those in the manga coming up soon. But this latest chapter definitely had one of my favorite cliffhangers in a while, and there's been some great cliffhangers for sure. But with the Kuma Seraphim and the Hawkeye Seraphim, which we've had the tease of Zoro versus this Hawkeye Seraphim already, and we didn't have to wait for that tease to pay off. It seems like we're about to get that payoff, but dynamic I didn't think we were going to be getting ever. One of those things, as soon as I read it, my jaw dropped. I was like, I had never imagined we'd be having CP0 and Straw Hats team up against anything. And oh my god,
yeah, they might not do it.
They could just be like, no, let's not. We can handle this ourselves.
Yeah, or they could release CP0 and immediately get betrayed by them.
Yeah. So, they instantly just try to break their necks, and that doesn't work.
It's kind of tough to break Luffy's neck.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see if Luffy being very tired in the past chapter had some deeper meaning, like that the transformation that he's using is burning up too much. So because until now we've seen, he can just go gear 5th like that whenever he wants, blah blah blah. Maybe this is like a wake up call for him and say, take it easy, right?
Yeah, although
it was kind of weird that he was so tired just because he said I was running around. There's definitely something hiding there. We don't know what.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something up with gear 5th and his ability to use it like without, exhausting himself, because I mean it's a big power up, and so of course it's going to come with some costs. And I'm not sure it'll necessarily be a wake up call for Luffy, because Luffy is just going to be like, yeah, I get tired and it's burning up my life, but who cares about that? We're living for the present. We're living to try and save people now, not to live out my old age later. So,
which I thought was something. I mean, it's clearly been a very long time, but I believe when he first pulled Gear 2nd out, I thought that there was somebody, and again, it's been a while, so I don't know who said it or what exactly the lines were, but it was something along the lines of like he was using this sort of energy that shortens his life to like power him up. And we never really got any more explanation on that. I'm not sure if that was just a fan thing that got like lost in translation or something like that. But I'm really afraid that that's going to be like something at the end where it's just like, all right, you did it, Luffy, but you used too much of your powers, so now you're dead. Like, no.
I mean, that would be unique, because in pretty much every other thing, when they have something like that, it's like it's just like, yeah, they just shorten their life. They don't actually die from it.
I was gonna say that exactly. Like 99% of manga power ups, they say that you gotta shorten your life.
It's like, okay, we'll take your word for it. I mean,
yeah, the writer will decide if that's important later. But yeah, I am very, very excited for the next chapter to come out. Lots of really exciting pair ups here. Just getting to see like Lucci and Kaku fighting with their new forms is just really enjoyable. But I'm just, if we do get this team up, like how well they're going to work together, like, because there's those moments like going far back into like the Davy back fight. I recently did an article on Screen Rant about Zoro. It's like most the moments where Zoro like needed to ask for help or had to team up with somebody else, and him teaming up with Sanji because they were about to lose the Davy back fight. He pretty much asks like, hey Cook, I might just need you for like 10 minutes. And Sanji's just like, that seems like a reasonable amount of time. And then they just, without words, perfect synchronicity, perfect fighting together. And I'm really wondering if we're going to get that here. If CP0 is just like that good at fighting, if they can just synchronize with Luffy and Zoro to do some amazing attacks, like I'm so excited, my hair on my arms are standing up. It's really, really exciting stuff.
The cool reference is that back in Water 7, Zoro and Luffy did a combined attack.
Oh, against the giant wave.
Yeah.
That was another bit that they animated really well.
So maybe we could see something like that again.
Oh boy, they've powered up a little bit since then, so that could be really cool. But yeah, what else about this chapter? I think we got a little tease, and this is something. Here's a little preview of a Screen Rant article I'm going to be coming out with. I think we got a tease on Usopp's maybe final power up. We got revealed that Lilith has some sort of bubble gun that can bounce back any sort of attack.
It's the one that the new pacifista used the previous chapter.
Oh, was it? I forget which pacifista they used the bubble gun.
The new ones, the Model 3 was that Mark 3.
Oh, like right, yeah, the P3. Yeah. It was like a bubble shield sort of thing.
Yeah.
Must be good. Yeah. Well, with Usopp's like observation hockey and the cunning fighting style that he had to implement, mostly pre-time skip, I've missed that a lot. Just because Usopp is consistently the guy who's just getting beat up all the time and having to come up with ways to outsmart his opponents rather than just being more powerful. I feel like that's been kind of lacking post time skip. So hearing about that, I was like, oh man, Usopp would be able to do some pretty cool things with such an ability. So I'm really hoping that was foreshadowing that sort of thing. And we finally got a new character. It's been since Pudding, who's nice to Sanji. Stussy being all cute and booping him on the nose and stuff. Just can't get over how fun all these pairings are right now.
And we'd also learned that Sanji would immediately die in the Chainsaw Man universe.
Yes,
because he's just asking right away, will you call me your dog? And that
was I honestly I love that, because so many people complain about Sanji. So many people say, hey, it's a toxic character, it's toxic masculinity and whatever, right? And Oda's just, I don't care. There's like, this is my character, and he's gonna be like that until the end of the story.
Yeah. I actually posted on our Discord. I found a YouTuber who does some amazing work doing kind of a deep dive into these character dynamics, and made me realize a whole lot of stuff about like Sanji and Zoro that I didn't pick up on. But Sanji is like a hugely tragic character that has horrible self-esteem issues. Like, he just doesn't think he's worth it. So that's why he's always like fawning over somebody, because he doesn't have the idea that he like left a strong enough impression, like with Nami, where she's going to like fall in love with him, which is why he's just consistently going to any hot woman and like, oh my God, I'm so in love with you. Cause he just doesn't have that self-worth at all. Like, it's a really interesting dynamic that's kind of switched up anytime he does that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, Sanji, you're worth the love, man. You don't need to go everywhere and look for it. Like, just appreciate yourself a little bit more. I might have to write a thing about that one too. But I don't think Sanji would last very long in Chainsaw Man for sure. But yeah, I wondering if there's any other thoughts you guys had on the chapter, because I mean, we could talk about One Piece for a very long time, I think. But what were some other things that stood out for y'all?
Ben, you want to go on?
No, I mean, that was mainly it for me. I'm just like looking through the chapter real briefly to see if there's anything else that I missed. Oh, I guess Nami realizing that they could make diamonds, like, that was very funny. It's been a while since we've had a Nami, just sort of being like, ooh, cash, But I love that aspect of her character.
Yeah, there's actually one bit about that interaction. I'm wondering, like, we're starting to get to the point where they can explain the weird cartoony parts that happen. Like, even, is it Pythagoras or no, Edison's the little one. He's like, why did your eyes transform into like little dollar signs? Like, he asked her about that. And I'm almost wondering, like, if they've spent so much time with Luffy, if like his impersonation of them, like his Gear 5 abilities, are allowing them to do that sort of thing. I doubt that's it. I doubt we'll get like that particular about it, but I would think it'd be pretty interesting if that's how we end up explaining like how their eyes are shooting out and all that stuff.
I mean, I'm sure that there will be some people who just like want One Piece to be like extremely serious and just plot focused and stuff, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, this justifies this sort of thing. Like nothing is actually silly in this series. It's all just, Gear 5. But at the end of the day, like One Piece is largely a comedy manga as well as an action adventure manga. And so like, I think it's just a funny moment. That's how I always interpret it. And I mean, the Gear 5 stuff is nice for like providing an explanation for people who need that. But yeah, I think it's just funny. And I think Oda thinks it's just funny too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem with it if we never get that clarification, because absolutely, I think a lot of people forget that this is a comedy. I mean, it's got lots of other things about it, sure, but I see so many people like whenever something silly happens in the anime or the manga or something like that, they get upset and it's like, dude, have you not been paying attention? Like the series is built on that sort of stuff. So, but who do you guys think is? I think the last thing I'll ask before we move on to the next manga to talk about, who you got money on the trader? I personally, just because the whole masked trope, I think it might be Shaka.
I am personally leaning Pythagoras because I think they're trying to cast suspicion away from them by being like, oh, someone attacked me and now I'm just ahead, and like, oh, I tried to make the Seraphim stop, but it didn't work.
That's a good one.
But I may be overthinking that. As Francesco said, that's more of a Togashi thing than an Oda thing.
I think we don't have the elements yet. I think this is not one of the situations where, we got all the clues. It's going to be a big reveal that we have that's based on things that we as readers do know. Yeah. So I'm leaning toward it's none of the things that we're thinking. Right?
Yeah.
There is also the what's the name of the guy that's freeloading on the ship?
Bartholomew.
No,
not Bartholomew. It's
Bartholomew's the cool one.
Yeah, he's the cool one, but he's like Cavendish. No, not Cavendish. That's the
Caribou.
Caribou, yeah. That's
Caribou. Yeah, a lot of people online are saying that Caribou is messing with stuff because his powers are sort of perfect for that. But we got so many players. We got Kizaru. We got Saturn. It's weird. Yeah. We'll see.
Well, especially,
I personally think Caribou is just Big News Morgan's informant.
Yeah,
because that's something that people have been thinking about. Like, how is Big News Morgan getting all this information?
Yeah, so quickly.
Yeah, and I think Caribou's serving that role.
I almost wonder, because you brought up a great point, Francesco. There's so many players that Oda has been jumping around. Like, we've got Garp, we've got Blackbeard, we've got Kizaru, we've got the World Star, we've got so many like moving parts around this island right now, that it could be any of them. But I almost wonder if Oda is like not telling this in chronological order. Like, if it was actually the World Star who delivered the message to the Seraphim, then he could be on Egghead already, not had just left with Kizaru on the way. And Dragon too. Like, we have so many moving parts that it would be interesting if he's just like, oh yeah, that was actually a little bit ago, because travel. I don't think Oda's going to drop. It's not going to be like Game of Thrones where it's suddenly like, oh yeah, I know last episode we were at the very top of the island and now we're all the way down here. And like, that was very far. But it's just so many moving parts, and Oda has consistently made it all pay off. So very exciting. But yeah, I think we'll go ahead and start moving into JoJo if you guys are ready for that.
Yeah, I'm good for that.
All right. Well, let me send. We've got another buddy who wanted to talk some JoJo with us, so let me go and send him a message. We are ready.
The JoJo lands.
The JoJo lands.
Yeah.
I heard, like, I've read a comment on the Reddit someone saying, I was surprised. Like I was happy to see there was no lion in JoJo Lion, and now I'm happy to see there are no lands in JoJo
Lands.
Well, yeah, it taking place on Hawaii. We've got all kinds of little islands, but I don't know if it's going to be jumping around to islands and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see if Carlyle is going to jump in or not. But this is my first time reading a JoJo's manga. I've been an anime watcher. I've enjoyed part 1, 2, 3, 4 was pretty awesome.
Yeah, 4 is my favorite.
Yeah, that's actually one of my closest buddies' favorites also, and he's the one that got me into JoJo.
In terms of anime, I agree, but part 7 is my favorite, just part in general.
Okay. I got a little bit into part 5.
Yeah, Steel Ball Run, yeah.
Okay, that's the one that after Jolene? Because Jolene.
Yeah, that's the one after Jolene.
So you got a little bit of 5, but not all of it?
I didn't. I didn't like really any of the characters. I thought I got to the episode where they like got stuck on a boat and then they just started magically disappearing, and they're like, oh no, his power is able to make a copy, and he's hiding in the like small part
that was
in
super
the boat.
Strange.
It lost me there.
I feel like you may. I feel like you may not like part 9 then, considering that the powers have only gotten weirder, and part 5 seems to be the basis for part 9 with its. But
I've got to say that part 5 was awesome because it was in Italy. So imagine all this group of young nerds who had been reading JoJo since the beginning, when like manga were not cool at all.
Yeah,
and I always make this joke with my like old friends that back in the days. So like it's the classic image of someone reading like a dirty magazine hidden inside like a newspaper or something like that, right? Like we used to hide manga inside dirty magazines, right? Because you had to look cool, right?
Yeah.
And so imagine them when they say, "Oh, okay, so the new part of JoJo is gonna be in Italy." So we were, amazing!
Oh, I bet that's a whole other layer. Yeah.
I think that part 5 has some very cool fights, but it's basically all fights. Like the story is super simple. The characters are often underdeveloped. You kind of wanna see more. You wanna hear more. So yeah, but part 7 is the one I remember the least because it's when serialization started being like
monthly.
Monthly in Japan, which means that in Italy, where I was reading it back then, it was like every 3 months.
Oh boy,
3 months. So it's the one that I remember the least, basically.
Yeah, I got caught up with JoJo's after part 7 had completed. So like I was able to read it all in one go.
Right.
And I think that helped out a lot because it is such a continuous story. Like, and that's why I like it so much. It feels like the most sort of just everything coming together, firing on all cylinders at the same time sort of story.
I like the ending, but I have to say I kind of got bored in the middle of the race because
really?
It was, I mean, coming from the previous JoJo stories that were kind of very focused with more characters together, and you had this clear mission of, we got to stop evil and this evil guy and this and that. When part 7 is basically, okay, we're doing this race all through America, and meanwhile things happen, which it was very different. It was very different, and I didn't like it a lot, but I did like the final, the ending with President Valentine.
Oh, the ending was great.
And my favorite stand name of all time, Dirty Deeds Standard Ship.
Yeah, filthy acts at a reasonable price. Yeah, as the English localization calls it.
What's the name? What's the name?
Filthy acts at a reasonable price.
Carlyle, is another writer for Screen Rant, and also thanks for chiming in with our JoJo conversation. We're just kind of going around. This is our first time talking JoJo on the podcast. I was kind of getting into how I've never read a JoJo manga. I've read the animes for 1 through. I've watched the animes for 1 through 4, parts of 5. Couldn't really get into it. Really enjoying. I started part 6 a couple weeks ago, and Netflix's anime, and really enjoying that a lot more than I was enjoying part 5 personally. But I have no knowledge of part 6, or sorry, part 7
or
and
8.
8. Yes. So I'm kind of going into this one with a clean slate, and I think you guys will be able to.
It's fine
point to
because
things.
it's basically no connection. Like 7, 8, and 9. Yes, they have the characters like all the descendants of this and that, but they're not. Well, you could say the same for 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
But these are even more detached. So
I mean, we'll have to see with part 9 because there's already theories of like the wealthy Japanese tourist being one of the Higashikatas.
I just hope we won't get any more rock humans, because that's the most that's the dumbest thing in the series, really.
Yeah, honestly, the rock humans is part of why part 8 is one of my less favorite parts. Like, it's not my least favorite. Like, I mean, I was not a fan of part 1 personally, but like, it's definitely down there. And the rock humans are a big part of that. Also, just the ending being super rushed was, very unfortunate.
Well, Carlyle, what's your experience with JoJo, man? How long have you been reading it?
I hadn't read the manga until I started writing for Screen Rant, and then I went back and read through all of part 8 so I could get caught up, because I knew it was going to be ending soon, and it did. But it was I did enjoy reading it. It's definitely very different than a lot of the other parts. It's a little slower paced. It's a little we've got a much bigger focus on this entire family than just a single JoJo. And it definitely seems like it's going to be relevant here in part 9, although to what extent we have not yet seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the first chapter of this new part, we very quickly got our new characters established. Was it Joe Dio? Which is
Joe Dio.
Such a
such an ominous name.
Such an ominous name. Yeah.
Well, it's just another connection to Giorno, because Giorno is the son of Dio, and so now it's Joe Dio, and they've got a similar sort of they're involved in crime, and so.
Well, that's another thing I've seen so many comments on too. Is what's the mangaka's name? Araki,
yeah.
Oh boy, in my brain I was like, it's Araki, but I was like, no, first guess, Jason. Come on, you're not going to get that first guess. A lot of the comments I've been seeing are like how far he's progressed. Like now our story is about a bunch of drug dealers and a very, like, I would say, like so far we've had very low screen time with them so far, but Dragana as a trans character, very, like, I think, like, respectfully portrayed. I think like
it's we don't quite know whether they're trans or gender fluid, or what their deal is, because they're still referred to with like he him pronouns.
But I think that the cop's reaction is
no, and like, of course, this could just be like, I mean, different cultures have different perceptions of these sorts of things as well.
Absolutely.
So like, this could be the Japanese perception of, like, I don't know enough about it to really
something that in the Japanese that I noticed is that they have gendered first person pronouns too. Like in English, we only have I, and that's the only first person pronoun, but they have gendered first person pronouns in Japanese. And she or Dragona uses the feminine first person pronoun, which would seem to suggest something trans related.
Yeah. Well, so JoDio and Dragana. Just very interesting choices of names. I thought I kind of, as soon as I read JoDio, I was just like, okay, that's a little on the nose. We're definitely taking like everyone's favorite characters from the series and combining them into this name, creating so much interesting mystery. And then we get into like meeting this possible trans character, and they're like, oh, I wonder what their name is. Drag Anna. Like, okay, this is all very on the nose names. I'm enjoying, at least, I mean, these are the fan subs too that we're reading.
Yeah.
So official translations might be different whenever those decide to come out. But I thought this one chapter did a great job of like, we know these characters, we know their deal, we know their situation. Like, if this was a pilot episode of a TV episode, wonderful job. This is a great pilot. As somebody who is, as I said, not fully up on all the JoJo stuff, I'm in. I'm in. I know these characters, and I'm very excited to see where they all go. But
yeah, the very first article I wrote for this new JoJo was exactly that compared to part 5, when they begin, oh, we got criminals. Yeah, but this is a criminal who basically wants to reform the Italian mafia so they don't sell drugs anymore because a gangster saved his life, and they never do anything bad in the entire series. While here, you have the main character basically saying, I just want to get rich. I just want to get on top of things, which is basically the system. And he even makes fun of a poor guy who gets bullied at school. And he says, so look at him. He's smarter than me. He comes from a rich family, whatever. But people are like beating him up. Why, look at me. And you got 2 panels of JoJo like with girls.
Posing.
That was so funny.
So it's so different. Like, because even for Jotaro and Josuke, you had this, sort of Japanese juvenile delinquent theme, right? They had the uniforms, they had the attitude, right? But ultimately, they were JoJo, the biggest heroes in manga lore, right? The Joestar family always does the right thing. They have been portrayed every time the epitome of justice, of goodwill, of everything, right? And how you have this guy who is the total opposite, which is awesome, because let's face it, it's been 35 years. You have to change something.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I don't want to keep going back to the part 7 but Johnny was also sort of a terrible person. Like, he was the first JoJo
in the beginning. Yes.
Yeah. He became
was very interesting. Yeah. Exactly, because you had this character who was flawed, both physically and emotionally, right?
Yeah.
That was very interesting. But then, as the story progressed, it was just
But I feel like a similar thing might happen here, which I hope it doesn't, because I would like to have just like a criminal JoJo who's actually like a terrible criminal, like
the antagonist of a whole part would be the JoJo.
Yeah, kind of. But well, it could turn out that way if the Japanese tourist is like Josuke from part 8, or like one of the Higashikatas, like kind of like continuing part 8, but with the antagonist being our protagonist.
It could. It's also interesting that this is the first time that the story is told from the main character's perspective.
Is it?
The narrator is JoDio.
Yeah,
and I don't think this ever happened before, because in part 4 it was Koichi.
Yep.
In part 5 there was like a third person narrator, I think, if there was one. Part 6 was Emporio.
Yeah,
I think. I don't remember about part 7, honestly.
I don't think part 7 had I'm trying to remember. I think it had maybe some things where Johnny was like thinking about his past and story, but I think overall it was not first person.
Yeah, so this is new. and it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who's only watched the anime, I had no idea that each one was like actually being narrated by one of the main characters, because the anime clearly like, oh, here's our protagonist, we're following our protagonist, and
we also have the generic narrator who shows up sometimes, usually to explain some unrelated historical detail that's going to be relevant.
Yeah. And that's the most common narrator. I can't wait for I've been seeing a lot of memes where it's like part 9 now versus part 9 300 chapters from now, and it's like just big brain black holes, reality warping stuff happening then.
Gonna restart the universe.
Yeah, and it all starts with just someone wanting to get rich,
Yeah. Has it been established that this is going to be the final part?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he said that, although just based on his age, it seems likely. And how long part 8 ran. If part 9 even runs half that long, he'll be in his 70s by then.
But look at how he looks. He looks like he does not age.
He's superhuman. Definitely. It's definitely not a human being.
Yeah.
He's an alien. And maybe the final
must have a stand. Like,
he has a stand.
he says that in the beginning of the chapter. He says, "Stands are here. If you don't see them, it's because you're not looking hard enough."
Yeah, you don't want to see them, I guess. But we did get and I had to ask a couple questions about this on our Discord, but we got a family tree, at least a little bit of the family tree in this, which really helped connect a lot of the previous parts and stuff like that for people who are curious about that sort of thing. And I even thank you for clarifying this for me, Carlyle, but on the family tree, it shows that Dragona and Jodio were Joseph's grandchildren and cousins to Kira, but it's not the same Kira that I thought was from part 4, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
not the greatest villain of all time, sadly.
Yeah. Well, the in part 6 reset the universe, so all the stuff going on part 7 onward are new.
At 7, 8, and 9, it's a new reality. So it's nothing to do. You got recurring names and sort of alternate version of characters, but it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So the family tree like doesn't mean anything then, really.
Well, no, it means something.
Well, it does.
Joseph appeared at the end of part 8.
Yeah. In a flashback.
So this explains why Jodio is a Joseph. So they're going back to the Joseph family, because in part 8 it was the Japanese branch, right? The Kujo, kind of. Because what was because Josuke was the melding of
Holly's son. So he would because it was weird because he was
half Jotaro. He was half Jotaro. Jotaro was Holly's son.
Yeah, but also Holly had a daughter who was more like Jotaro in that part.
Yeah.
So people were like, well, she's Jotaro and he's Josuke. It's very convoluted, but he basically, Araki was just like, okay, part 7, that's going to be part 1. Part 8, I'm going to introduce 2, 3, 4. We're going to slam those JoJo's in here. We'll introduce part 2 JoJo in a flashback. It's mostly part 4, right? Yeah, it's mostly part 4, but we're going to just cover 2 and 3 just to have them.
I think that actually Stillborn Run is part 3, because you got the trip across the country.
But you've got Johnny and Zeppeli, right? Which are
that's part 1. Yeah. But the theme and the setting is more part 3.
Yeah, the traveling is definitely more part 3.
And and Dio as one of the final villains, kind of.
Well,
almost the final villain.
Yeah.
And
well, he is.
What powers can I give him in this new world? Dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, scary monsters.
As somebody who hasn't read 7 or 8, I'm very lost.
Yeah.
So the whole everything gets reset at the end of 6. That's wild.
Yeah. Sorry
well-
for the spoiler for part 6. But
I'm curious to see how it all gets there because I would
Yeah.
had part 6 kind of summarized to the point where I was like, that sounds really interesting. I want to check that out, and that's kind of what got me
Yeah, it's
into
cool.
it. So
It's cool.
Yeah, part 6 was overly hated by the fan base for a while.
no, that's weird. Fan
which-
bases are weird.
Yeah.
I mean, ever
Uh,
since the anime started, it's been much more well received
Yeah.
by fans.
Oh, I
Which
bet.
deservedly so. I really like part 6. Part 6, Jolene is actually my favorite JoJo. And Poochie is like, he's in my top 3 JoJo's villains. Maybe he's either he goes between them depending on whether, I'm been more recently exposed to Valentine or Kira. So
Kira is number 1 always.
Kira's
Kira
great.
is the best villain ever.
See,
And
the whole time I
Leon
was going through part 4, I kept waiting for Kira to somehow be connected to Dio, because for some reason I had thought that like while Dio took over the original Joestar body, he had a bunch of kids, and the whole time I thought Kira was like a lost son of Dio. And so I kept waiting for that to happen, and it never did. And I like got in my buddy's face about it. I was just like, "You told me that this was the thing," and he's just like, "No, you just heard me."
Just a sick,
Like, oh,
just
oh.
a sick, crazy mofo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I almost appreciate it more the more and more I think about it. Like, yeah, he didn't have to be related to Dio.
Yeah.
But another little detail I really enjoyed about part 9 too was after Joe Dio like points at that nerd and he's just like, "Oh yeah, we're pretty much the same, but look at him, look at me." Oh no, this is actually it was right before that, but the kid that ends up showing up later at the end of the chapter tried to buy drugs on the bus, and he's just like, "No, we don't do that." And then we get the quote, I'm not going to build up a cast of best buds either. And I instantly thought they were like pointing at part 5, which I've established I wasn't a fan of, because it just instantly is like, here's all these characters. None of them are likable yet.
Hey, the characters from part 5 are likable, in my opinion.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Very
I
tragic because most of them die a terrible death.
Yeah.
And they're good guys, and they're short backstories or how they get into crime. They are interesting. One of the things that I hated the most is that when Fugo, the guy with the virus
Purple Rain.
stand,
Yeah.
just says, "Well, guys, I don't like what you're doing. Bye."
See, I really liked
Oh,
that.
okay.
I thought that was very interesting because we expected him to come back, but then he never did. And I was like, that's actually
He just
more
pieces out.
realistic than,
But he had the coolest stand of them all. I got to use him
Yeah.
only
I was
once.
disappointed that he never
But
got
there
to
is
use that.
actually
again.
There's a whole light novel.
there is
about
actually
it,
a light novel.
cool.
There is a follow-up light novel where basically once Giorno becomes the head of the organization, Fugo crawls back to him and says, "Oh, please forgive me." and Giorno gives him a mission to track down the last 2 members of the assassination squad or whatever that was.
Oh, cool.
And see, yeah, it's a cool light novel.
It does sound
actually.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking
I
of
believe
scam,
it's by the same person who did the part 4 spinoff that's going on, the Crazy Diamond Demonic Heartbreak.
is it a
It was written by the same
Kishibe?
person.
The
No.
no,
the Kishibe Rohan stuff I think are done by Araki.
Yeah, that's all Araki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Speaking of stands, we got to see both of our new character stands, like right away. Even
And November Rain.
Yeah, is that Joe Dio's?
That was Joe Dio's. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which-
it just really odd design. It almost looks like one of those things that you use to like in baking to like squeeze out dough or frosting.
I love
Yeah.
the design of Joe Dio's stand because, and I think someone else on our team brought it. It might have been, Carlyle or Francesco.
Carlyle.
But it was it was about it not being a humanoid form, and it's the first time that we've seen that, and I think that's really cool.
It's and actually, Carlyle, I think you should have put in the title somewhere that the new JoJo Stan can do what every other JoJo does all the time, which is punching people. Because it doesn't.
Yeah, that's technically what it's doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was kind of confused about. Is it like pushing out like moisture, like pressurizing moisture and like adjusting?
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think it's probably taking, these strings and spinning them and pushing them down as raindrops. So we're just gonna get infinite go beyonds.
I do appreciate like anytime he gets mad, he goes aura like
anytime that on the bus. Do that now. Because how are we gonna get those amazing scenes where the villain gets punched with either horror
for 7 pages?
There's gonna be tons of raindrops.
Or whatever. What was Josuke saying from JoJo Lion?
From JoJo. Oh,
what did he say?
It was I forget. I mean, he didn't really do many of those like punching moments in JoJo Lion, I feel like. Or I could be misremembering, but it was much more of an ensemble piece.
Dragona Stand looks a lot like Mista Stand from Part 5.
It does. Yeah, it does. And it looks a lot like that one, and I feel like it is going to be the sort of, in every part there's like a medical stand where it's like if someone gets grievously injured, one of the characters is a stand that stitches them back up. And I feel like this is going to be
and they get more bullshit every time, because like remember in Part 4 was like, okay, my power is healing other people, fine, nice.
Yeah.
In Part 5 it started with, okay, if you have a hole in your body, I can put something in it, and then it changes into a part of your body. It's not going to heal you, but it's going to do something. And then by the end, like Giorno's powers were the craziest one. They did anything
I've heard
in the story. They did anything in the story needed to do. In the first chapter, and only in the first chapter, he had the power that when you struck something that he created, you got hit back, remember?
Yeah.
When
never popped up again.
Makes the little frog when the guy with the shovel, Luca la Lacrima, which is an amazing Italian criminal name, he hits the frog and he gets hit back. Remember that?
Oh, right. Yeah, I was thinking
never again. He never used that again in the whole series. And then
I just remember him capturing Short Guy by like touching a seed, and then the seed just grows like into a tree.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, okay, so he can just like accelerate the lifespan of things, I guess.
Well, he causes things to grow and become life, and
then he never uses. And then when he hits, when he fights Bucciarati for the first time, he does the weird thing when he accelerates him. So you're so accelerated that everything you see is moving like in slow-mo. It doesn't make sense. But anyways, again, never
use it again.
Never use it again. Never use it again. And then when he had this weird thing, when he created something from like a part of your body, then that animal would like trace back to the part that was.
Yeah, no, it would follow
I remember
you.
That too. That was an odd one.
And then his final power up with Requiem was like,
and there are pages and pages online trying to explain Diavolo's power, King Crimson.
Yep. At least King Crimson was consistent. Relatively.
Because I think it's that like King Crimson negates.
It like skips time.
Pose?
So like what it does is it like
but
it erases the intervening.
There is another
time.
relation, but there is another relation because like King Crimson negate cause, and I think the evolution of Giorno Stan negates effect.
Giorno Stan basically reverts everything to how it was, when King Crimson basically skips ahead to how it will be. So that's why it is so able to like counter it. But we thought that that would, Golden Wind Requiem or Golden Experience Requiem is what it's actually called. We thought that would be the ultimate, it can't get more broken than this. And then, you have like part 8 Josuke where he's like, Soft and Wet Go Beyond, where it's like, oh yeah, we're just going to negate all causality. That's
you don't exist anymore. I decided you don't exist.
But in the end,
now you never existed.
In the end, if you think about it, it's just an unstoppable bullet.
It is.
Oh yeah.
which
just
is
fire
what they
something
needed.
at you.
They needed that to beat the big bad of part 8, but like
that was broken as hell.
Oh yeah. It is for my money, it's the most broken stand in the series.
Wow.
I know people will always go back to Golden Experience Requiem or even Tusk Act 4, but like Soft and White Go Beyond, that's like just
I'm an old school the word or the word though.
Yeah, the world.
I definitely like that. Way more exciting than just the world.
Yeah. Stop time. Fuck you up.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the thing
we got a guy who basically destroyed the universe in part 6.
Yeah.
Which
is yet another reason why Pucci is one of my favorite JoJo's villains.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go back and start watching my Netflix JoJo after this.
Yeah, watch the anime, because the anime actually sort of explains that a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit better.
Well, I think it explained King Crimson a lot better in part 5 anime than in the manga.
Yeah.
Because it's more easy to see through animation than through, static panels.
Yeah. And also because they got years of fans like this trying to describe it and
just trying. Do we know is this a weekly?
No, it's
gonna be monthly.
Monthly. Okay. Well, we'll definitely be talking about the next chapter when that comes out. Hopefully we'll learn more about all of these new characters we've got established. But and as you guys said, JoJo has a habit of just getting more and more silly as the parts go on. So we'll see if these stands that we've had previewed so far level up even further. But hopefully he learned from part 5 to have it be a little bit more not just like, oh yeah, his powers just do whatever we need the plot to do right now. But we still know so little about them. We'll see how it all develops. But we're hitting about our time for this episode. So any final thoughts on part 9 before we say goodbye?
It's not what I expected, but I'm here for it. I know better than to try and expect JoJo by now.
Yeah. If I was better at JoJo, I would deliver the line of in part 2, the Joseph about assuming things, but I can't think of it right now.
I just hope that it doesn't have as rushed an ending as part 8 did, because part 8, I was with it until it just ended in like 5 chapters, and it's like out of nowhere, and I was like, damn, well, that's kind of unfortunate. I wanted to see this actually build to something cool, and instead it's just over. So I hope that same thing doesn't happen with part 9, and and I also hope that it has a better big bad, because I was not the biggest fan of Toru.
I was about to say that. Like the issue with part 8 is that you get the big villain at the end, basically.
Yeah.
So everyone who comes before is just people trying to make money from a thing. Like it doesn't give you the vibe of good versus evil.
Yeah.
And even the final villain, it gives you like a feeling because he's very strong, but it doesn't give you the idea that, oh wow, this is like the personification of evil. We have to defeat him and all of that, right?
Yeah, and
he's always trying to make money from something.
And that's fine, but it's like we had no idea that it. Like I remember when the arc was going on, people were still debating online, like, is this the actual big bad or is this not, right? Like, and so we didn't really even know that it was the final villain until like the end of the series, and then it's like, oh, okay, I guess it is. Like
Yeah.
people were thinking
I
that
know.
the woman, the mother of the family that left, they thought that she was going to be the big bad, and she showed up and just died out of nowhere. And then they thought like it was just it was very mishandled in the end, I thought. And so I hope that part
Even
9
even what's the name of the eldest son?
Oh yeah, the guy was Speed
The
King, right? Yeah, because Oda even said, or not Oda, Araki even said, like, oh, Speed King has mysterious powers that have not been revealed yet, like in the manga
well, he
itself,
died.
and yeah, and then he died. And I was like, oh, so I guess we're never gonna see what those powers are, huh?
Oh, what a jerk. That seems like the ultimate red herring. Like, oh boy,
Yeah.
you bet
So
you guys can't wait
so
to
that's
see this
so
character.
Well,
dead.
it's like in part 4 when Josuke gets saved by the mysterious guy with the pompadour, and you're like, ooh, that's gonna come back at some point, and then it never does. It's
oh yeah. Yeah.
it's the
Oh,
classic
right.
Rocky forgot.
I kept waiting for that to like him get zapped back into the past and be like he saved himself as a kid. But yeah,
A
that
lot of
nothing.
people had that theory at the time.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. As I said, this is my first time actually being part of a JoJo series as it's coming out. So couldn't ask for a better group to do that with. Thank you guys so much for your time. But we'll definitely be talking more JoJo as it comes out. Hopefully, it comes out on schedule in a month. But if he's going to keep on delivering stuff like that, I mean, I was blown away by the art in this too. I'm
Yeah.
normally a Shonen Jump reader, so I'm used to series that are having to come out with something every week, and we get a couple panels that are like, "Oh, that's awesome," but other times not so much. And just like the shading and just I mean, the guy's obviously been doing it a long time, so it was a real treat. Really enjoying the manga as an anime only JoJo fan so far. I'm all for it. So, but please let us know in the comments if you had any extra thoughts on any of the series we discussed: Chainsaw Man, One Piece, JoJo. If there's some things that you think we missed that you think that we should talk about, let us know. Excited to hear from you. But I think that'll wrap up this episode of Mega Manga Monday. Please subscribe, like the video, and of course leave a comment. But yeah, any final thoughts on any of those series before we log off today, gentlemen?
No, that's my thoughts on those series. Yeah.
Good.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
Good time.
Carlyle.
Good time to be a manga reader.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Carlyle, Francesco, Ben, thank you guys so much for your thoughts. We're going to have links to how you can get more of our content in the description, so check that out, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Peace.
Yeah. Bye everyone.
Peace.